Ever since MCP became popular, you might have heard people saying that MCP will replace APIs. But in this video, I'm going to ask a different question. Did GraphQL or WebSockets or gRPC replace REST APIs? And if they didn't, why not? I mean, take GraphQL for example. It's an amazing technology. It gives the front ends the ability to write their own queries on backend data. While with REST APIs, you usually have a fixed and predefined contract. Suppose you have an endpoint that returns 10 fields, but now the client needs an 11th field. To make that happen, you will have to make changes in the code and redeploy the API. And in the same way, if you need only one field, you may still have to fetch all the 10 fields just so you can get the one field you actually need. That can be inefficient. On the other hand, with GraphQL, you can specify exactly which fields you want, how many records you need, apply filters, or even fetch data from multiple related entities in a single query. That is incredibly flexible and powerful. Now just focus on this one particular benefit. If this were the only thing that mattered, GraphQL should have already replaced REST APIs. But it didn't, because there are other things as well. Every technology comes with its own pros and cons. GraphQL empowers the client. That means more flexibility and more control on the front end. But it also means more responsibility and more trust. What if you don't control those clients? What if you're exposing a public API? What if clients start making very expensive and inefficient queries? What if they create one big generic query and keep using it everywhere, even when they only need just a single value? That flexibility comes at a cost. In addition, GraphQL can also increase complexity on the client side and it can be harder to cache on the backend. So, which technology is going to replace the other? The answer is neither. They were never designed to replace one another in the first place. Instead, they were designed to give you more options so that you can choose the one that fits better in a given scenario. This is something that empowers architects. I'll get back to this. But for now, tell me, why didn't WebSockets replace APIs? Like WebSockets, they enable two-way communication. Well, with HTTP, communication is only one way. In HTTP, client connects to the server, sends a request, the server processes it, and returns a response. And then the interaction is over. The server cannot initiate communication on its own. Only the client can, right? But with WebSockets, there is a persistent connection between the client and the server. Just like the client, the server can also send messages to the client whenever it needs to. This makes WebSockets ideal for chat applications, push notifications, online gaming, and any scenario where you need real-time updates. Now forget about everything for a moment and just focus on this one attribute. Two-way communication versus one-way communication. That's not even a comparison. How can a technology with one-way communication can even stand in front of a technology that supports two-way communication? WebSockets should have replaced APIs long time ago. But they didn't. Why? Because, as I said, each technology comes with its own pros and cons. For a long time, WebSockets were not widely supported by all devices. WebSockets keep persistent connections, which means on the client side, they can consume more resources, battery, and network. And also on the server side, they require more work and resources compared to HTTP, like detecting disconnects, reconnects, heartbeats, and so on. In addition, from an architectural perspective, they require a very different approach to scalability and a very different set of architectural patterns. Let me quickly explain. Suppose you have two servers and a load balancer. You're using HTTP. As soon as the load increases, your auto-scaling configuration adds two more servers, and the new requests immediately start getting distributed across all four servers. But with WebSockets, each connection is persistent. So when the load increases, even if you add two new servers, the existing connections don't immediately move to those new servers. which means if those two original servers are already under heavy load, users connected to those servers may continue experiencing slowness for a longer period, even though more servers are now available. Or suppose you have a chat application. User 1 is connected to server 1, while user 2 is connected to server 2. Now, user 1 sends a message to user 2, which lands on server 1. Server 1 cannot directly deliver that message to user 2 because user 2 is connected to a different server. So, we need to use a backplane or a message broker. I'm not saying this is necessarily a problem. I'm trying to explain that every technology comes as a package. You get some benefits, but you also accept some trade offs. And your job as an architect is to choose the right package in a given situation. So, back to my question, which technology is the best? The answer is that's not the right question. The right question is these are my options. Which technology should I use under the given constraints? That's how architects make decisions, or at least how they should make decisions. At this point, you might start seeing a pattern. What happens is we focus so much on one particular benefit of a technology that we start believing that it is somehow superior and that it's going to replace all the other similar technologies. Just like with WebSockets, when we focused too much on two-way communication. And it sounds very convincing. Because if it were only about two-way communication, WebSockets might have already replaced REST APIs. But we also need to consider scalability, complexity, resource usage, battery constraints, and so on. And similarly, if it were only about flexibility on the client side, GraphQL would probably be the dominant technology by now. But we also need to consider control, performance, safety, simplicity, and so on. And in the same way, if it were only about performance and low latency, gRPC would probably replace everything else. It uses protocol buffers instead of JSON, which makes payloads smaller and communication faster. It also gives you strongly typed contracts and code generation. And because it runs over HTTP2, it supports streaming. So, gRPC is fast, compact, strongly typed, and very powerful. But there are trade-offs. Protocol buffers uses a binary format, so they are not human readable. So if something goes wrong, troubleshooting can be slightly more difficult. For all those scenarios where human readability, debugging, or manual API testing is important, JSON can be a better option. In addition, REST has more than 2 decades of tooling, libraries, infrastructure, and community support, which makes it very hard to replace. Also, network performance is not always the bottleneck. You have multiple layers that contribute to the overall latency. So, for example, if network transfer and serialization take 50 milliseconds with JSON and protocol buffers reduce that to 20 milliseconds, that might not make a significant difference if the overall request still takes 500 milliseconds. But yeah, if you have tens or hundreds of such service to service calls, then those savings can add up and make a big difference. And that's one of the reasons gRPC shines in microservices, especially for service to service communication. But then, when we talk about inter service communication in microservices or any distributed system, one technology that comes with remarkable benefits is messaging. With messaging, services don't communicate directly. Instead, one service puts its messages in the broker and the other service picks it from there. That means services don't know each other directly, which makes them highly loosely coupled. It also means we can change these services at either end at any time without changing the other end. That makes the system highly maintainable. And it also means services don't have to be available at the same time. Even if one service is down, you can still put the messages in the broker and it will pick up those messages when it comes back. And it also means that you can leave messages for future services. If you want to learn more about this, I have a full video on messaging. But in short, messaging comes with an amazing and a very unique set of benefits. If you think about these benefits, these are not small ones. Each of these benefits is very powerful on its own. But all of these benefits don't mean that messaging is the best option in every scenario. Just like with every other technology, it comes with its own challenges too. It adds complexity, cost, you have to manage another component, it can become another point of failure, duplicate messages, out of order messages, and so on. So, which one is the best for inter service communication? That's not the right question. The right question is, which one should I use in this particular situation? All of these technologies come with different strengths and trade offs. Your job as an architect is to learn how to analyze those trade offs. Learning this one skill can significantly improve your decision making as an architect. Rather than making decisions based on things like this is my favorite technology or this is new and hot and this is trending these days, we need to learn to make decisions based on reasoning. And those decisions can change from project to project, case to case, and scenario to scenario. In my next video, I will show you how architects actually make those decisions using a real scenario and a reasoning based approach. Now back to our original question. Will MCP replace APIs? First, MCP was never designed to replace APIs. In many cases, it actually uses existing APIs underneath. So, what was MCP designed for? It was designed to give AI application a standard way to connect and use external capabilities. Let me explain. If you think about AI powered flows, they work very differently from conventional flows. In a conventional flow, you click a button and that directly triggers a method in the code. The control is passed from the user directly to the code. But in an AI-enabled flow, it's different. You talk to the agent. The agent needs to understand your intent, and then based on that intent, it may need to call some code. So at some point, control has to move from AI reasoning to code execution. For example, if you ask an agent create a new task, the agent may need to use a create task method that is implemented somewhere in the code. Without a standard mechanism, every AI application would need its own custom way to expose those capabilities and tell the agent how to use them. That's where MCP comes in. MCP provides a standard protocol through which AI applications can discover what capabilities are available, understand what inputs they require, and invoke them when needed. And those capabilities can be running on the same machine or on a different server. That's MCP. In short, it's designed to support AI and agents flow, not to replace APIs. So all this talk about MCP replacing APIs, I think it follows the same pattern that we saw earlier. We focus too much on one particular benefit. Let me show you. With agents and MCP, I can even write code using plain English, like this. Create a task with title. So if I can do this in plain English, why would I ever go through all the hassle of dealing with an HTTP client? And this is very convincing. This can significantly improve developability. Why would I even use applications like Postman the old way when I can just describe what I need in plain English? And this is where we fall into the same trap again. We focus so much on this one particular benefit that we start believing that this time it's going to replace everything. And I am not saying that this is not a powerful idea. In fact, we all know that AI is going to change a lot of things. And this is not just about MCP versus APIs. 10 years from today, the whole software development experience may look completely different. But that's a different discussion. What I see here is the same pattern again. We focus so much on one particular benefit that we forget that there are other concerns as well. In this case, the focus is developability. And while that matters, we also need to consider cost, predictability, existing systems, tooling, community support, and so on. We also need to remember that in many cases, MCP is just a wrapper on top of APIs. So instead of focusing on just one benefit, when we consider all these qualities, all the pros and cons, we also start seeing scenarios where a favorite technology may not be the right fit. For example, suppose we have a mission critical operation where accuracy, predictability and deterministic behavior are extremely important, and even a single mistake could be catastrophic. In that situation, a direct API call may be a much better choice than AI and MCP. So, again, it's not about one technology replacing the other. It's about learning the skill of trade off analysis because that's what helps us make better architectural decisions. In the next video, I'll take a real architectural problem and show you how architects make decisions.